Good morning, Wabash. Good morning. Giving today's chapel talk is Coach Olmy Olmstead. Coach Olmstead graduated from Wabash in 2004, where he was a member of the football and track and field teams. He was also a member of the Sphinx Club. He received his master's degree from Wilmington College, where he also coached for 5 seasons. He also coached for 3 seasons at Eastern Michigan University, where he is also currently working on completing the doctorate program of educational leadership. Coach Olmstead coached at Defiance College for 1 year before returning to Wabash as an assistant football and track and field coach. Giving his talk titled Wabash From the Heart, Coach Olmstead.
Good morning, Wabash. Good morning. Nah, that doesn't count. Let's do it again. Good morning, Wabash. Good morning. Now we're cooking. The first thing is, before I got up here, I went down to the bathroom, make sure my tie was straight. I looked in the mirror. The last time I had this on was about 10 years ago, and my hairline has changed significantly. So, and the second deal is this. Any of you clowns out there that make faces at me while I'm up here, I'm calling you out. So, but I've waited a long time to do this again. Thank you to the Sphinx Club for this opportunity, and certainly thank you to those in attendance today as well. One of the many reasons I love Wabash is because of all the traditions. We've got a ton of important traditions that are here. The chapel talks are definitely one of my favorite. So I'm very honored to stand before you today and have this opportunity to address the Wabash community. I am especially thankful to have the opportunity to follow last week's chapel speaker, who's a great friend of mine and a wonderful mentor, Dr. Rick Warner, so this is especially a great day for me. This is my second chapel talk. My first chapel talk was when I was a senior in 2004 at Senior Chapel. I want to talk to you a minute about my preparation for that 2004 chapel talk. You know, as a football player, as an athlete, we do a ton of rehearsals, walkthrough, practice, so on and so forth. I literally stood up here the night before at about 3 in the morning. I couldn't sleep and rehearsed it to no one. And the next day, I realized that my rehearsal was way better than the actual performance. So yes, yesterday I did rehearse as well. No one was in here. So hopefully today, you know, we have the reverse effect there. But I worked on that first chapel speech for about a month because I knew that I had some time and advancement to get it done. I bet there are some instructors here today that wish I'd worked that hard for them. I'm naturally not a smart, intelligent person, but I'm willing to work hard and fairly diligently. Now, if there's professors here from the Division I curriculum, they would probably enthusiastically disagree with that self-assessment of work ethic. So I do appreciate your compliance. Just sit there and pipe down until this is over. You can come and see me in more of a less formal private setting, and we'll share a typical Wabash refreshment on my dime. So that's my deal to you. I appreciate that. Now, for you undergraduates, that kind of bargaining, that kind of ploy doesn't work until after you've been wrung out. So don't get any ideas. All right. So here's the deal, okay? The title is Wabash From the Heart. I stole this line from a current Wabash student. And since Wabash always cites, I got to give credit where credit's due. You know, being involved in athletics, we do a ton of recruiting. And we've got a lot to be proud of here. We've got an excellent academic experience and reputation. We've got the top-notch, best professors in the United States. We've got wonderful facilities. We usually win. People come to the game. There's all that stuff that goes into selling Wabash. But the number one thing that we have to sell are you guys. The students here at Wabash is what we feel in the recruiting process are the number one reason that people should come here, the number one thing we have to sell. So what we do is sometimes we have a player panel and we set these players up front and we just grill them with questions, and Coach Morrell leads the show, and they just answer how they feel their experience at Wabash has affected these different topics. And one of our players, football players, Mark Riffle, who's here today, Riff he didn't know he was getting a shout out. So Riff, I stole this topic from you. You were talking about how much you enjoy the chapel talks, and sometimes there are people of great importance that come up here and speak, not today, but other occasions they do. They talk about whatever it may be, campus issues, political issues, and he said sometimes they just get up there and speak from the heart. And so after a lot of searching for about the last 2 months, I knew Corey had asked me to do this. What was I going to title this? That's what we came up with. So that's where this originated from. I had the opportunity to return to Wabash this past summer. I was happy where I was, but I could not say no to the opportunity to return to my alma mater. Prior to my interview, I'd not been on campus for 10 years. The last time I was here was commencement in 2004, so almost 10 years. I was not avoiding or unhappy with Wabash. Simply, life happened, and I moved all over the place and didn't have a chance to get back. So I did come back to Crawfordsville a day in advance. I really wasn't that far away. I could have come over the morning of, but I knew that if my first time back on campus at Wabash in 10 years was for my interview, I would probably fall down on the chapel steps and start crying, and that probably wouldn't look real good on an interview process. So I came a day in advance and got all that nonsense out of the way. So that being said, oftentimes you hear you don't know what you have until it's gone. I don't know that I necessarily go along with that. When I was here as a Wabash student, I knew I was fortunate to call myself a Wabash man. I knew this place was something special and unique, and so that's why I chose to come here as a student. Many of you know my parents. All right, now my old man, he loves Wabash just as much as I do. I'm very fortunate to have the most loving, caring, giving parents. I'm so proud of them. And they sacrificed so much for me to be here. And they worked extremely hard to give me the opportunity to come to school at Wabash and call myself a Wabash man. Now, Sally Mae is still all over my ass, but that's a different topic. So during the previous 10 years, I've coached at 3 other institutions. Here's what I've learned about Wabash that I never considered as a student. Essentially, in the last 10 years, I've found more things to be proud of about Wabash. And this is extremely important to me, and that's why I want to share it to you. And I tell you that it's important because if nothing else sinks in today, this I hope does. At other schools that I've worked, I'd walk around campus, and I'd think to myself, why don't they trim the grass around that sidewalk? It looks terrible. Why don't they clean these bathrooms and empty this trash? How come they don't vacuum that floor? Why don't they paint that? And I specifically can remember examples thinking to myself, walking around with recruits, and no one else even noticed, except for me. But you know why I didn't consider that when I was here? Because they do keep the landscaping immaculate. Because they do keep our facilities clean. You know why? I do. Because I asked them. The number one reason is because they care. I've talked to multiple people that perform these services around campus that I bet a bunch of you have never even thought about before. These folks are an extremely valuable part of this community because once you leave, you'll figure out not everybody cares about the job that they have. It's about taking pride in what you do. It's about putting your name on your product. Now, some of you know I'm a humongous Jimmy Buffett guy. I'm a big-time parrot head, so I gotta have a Jimmy Buffett reference in here somewhere. There's a guy named Mac McAnally. He wrote a song called It's My Job. Buffett performs it, and that's what the whole thing is about. No matter how big the task, no matter how small the task, you take pride in the job that you do. You put your name on it because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're taking out the trash or whether you're writing your senior seminar paper. Your name goes on that, and people know. And that's at the end of the day, the most important thing you have is your last name. Okay, so that's the image that you want to portray. Now, there's a guy. His name's C. Wayne Perry. C. Wayne Perry is the winningest football coach in the state of Indiana in history of football. And one of his former players told me he used to get so mad at his team when they would not push their chairs in the dining hall. And people would say, well, that's just a little thing. No, it's not a little thing. Those are the important details. And those details, those are the things that are the difference between the programs, the schools, the teams, the organizations at the top, and the ones that aren't. So here's what I'm telling you. Say hello to the people that perform those services. They're proud to work here. Tell them thank you, the grounds crew, the maintenance staff, the custodial workers, the people in the dining services, all those folks. The people here are different. Now, there's a guy that was one of my pledge brothers. His name was Matthew Dudevar. He was from West Point, New York. Now, he was a little different, but his father was a colonel at the United States Military Academy. And so he chose to come to Wabash. You talk about attention to detail, where we train our soldiers, okay? Well, he chose to come to Wabash, and he told me that this place was unlike anywhere that he'd ever seen before because there's no writing on the stalls in the bathrooms. Think about how simple that sounds. Everywhere in the country you go, people desecrate the walls and are doing dumb things, and that doesn't occur here. He said he chose to come here in addition because there was no trash on the ground outside. The place was clean. You could tell that people here were proud of what they had. So just think about that, how one simple thing like that convinced someone to come and have the opportunity to call themselves a Wabash man. So therefore, I'm going to scold you a little bit. Shame on you if you desecrate these hallowed walls or you litter on our beautiful campus. Shame on you. Shame on you if you walk past a piece of trash and don't pick it up and put it in the garbage. Those are the kind of people that we have here because they care about the environment. They're proud of what they have. They want to show that to people. Okay? So it takes no effort by many of us to help those who are assigned to performing these duties. All right, now switching gears a little bit, at the other three places I worked, the community and the college were completely isolated from one another. Now, I vividly remember going on visits when I was being recruited by schools and thinking, well, how's the community like? And they say, well, we don't go there and they don't come onto our campus, so we don't bother with them. Or this is where we hang out, that's where they hang out. I mean, everywhere has some sort of a line drawn, some sort of a separation. However, the people at many places, the colleges do not connect with the people in the community. In fact, I grew up in one of these environments, in a small village, similar to Crawfordsville, with a small private liberal arts institution there. And when I was a community member growing up, they supported the high school football teams and basketball and so on and so forth, but no one cared about the institution that was there. And the people at the institution didn't want anything to do with the people at the college. And I just thought that's the way it was. And so I didn't think much of it when I went on my visits to all these other similar small private liberal arts institutions, and it was like that there as well. It's just the way that it goes. You don't know any different. Then I came on a visit to Wabash. Then I chose to come to Wabash. The community supports you. If I appreciate the Wabash community for supporting Crawfordsville, and I certainly, now that I've come full circle, yes, I'm a townie now, I live here, so now that I've come full circle and I'm a townie, the people in this community, they do support you. Since becoming a townie, I've learned that, believe it or not, you won't get beat up if you're a Wally and go to Stoney's. Now, in all seriousness, no, that's what we thought. In all seriousness, no, the people of Crawfordsville support this college. It's your job to thank them when you have an opportunity. Become involved in community service events. Do those things. Get out there and advertise for this college. You know how you advertise for this college? Just be you. That's what you do. All right, and the people of this community are in love with this college, and that's something to be proud of. So, this is the only story here I'm about to tell that was a request. They said, you got to tell this story when you get up there to do your child. Okay, so here you go. Why Wabash for me personally? At first, like many others, I said, no way. No chance. The offensive line coach at the time, his name was Paul Van Wee. He was around college athletics for a long time. His dad was I believe he was the athletic director at Worcester. Okay, so he was around college athletics a long time. He was a great recruiter. He came to my high school. He did a wonderful job selling me on Wabash. He left. I took the folder and threw it in the trash. No way. The coaches called me. I didn't answer. The admissions people sent me letters. I didn't even open the envelopes. I threw them in the garbage. There was no way I was going to a school that had no chicks in the classroom. Are you kidding me? No way. Then I found out that a person that I knew, a person of integrity and character, was a Wabash graduate. And that person happened to be coaching here at that time. And his name was Nick Cronk. And I knew that Coach Cronk was an extremely important mentor in my life growing up. I was around him since I was about 10 years old. And then it turns out that he's coaching back at Wabash, and he calls me and he's like, hey, just come for a visit. Well, he went to school here. In such high regards I held him, I thought, okay, I'll go check this joint out. All right, so I came over for a visit. When I came over for my visit, I went to lunch in the Sparks Center with, at the time, the head coach, Greg Carlson, my father, and Dr. Blix. And Dr. Blix, at the end, we sat there, we talked about all kinds of different stuff, academics and social life and football and the whole shooting match. And at the end of it, we're getting ready to leave, and I was going to go on tour. Dr. Blix had way too many books that he could carry on his own, of course. So without even thinking anything of it, I mean, I just grabbed his tray. I get that. And I took his tray and put it in the deal over in Sparks. And on the way home, I'm making pluses and minuses lists of, all right, what was the positive things about Wabash? What am I still concerned about a little bit? And I compared them. It was a 3.5, 4-hour drive back to my hometown. So my dad and I, we compared all these things. And by the end of the time I got home, I thought, okay, this is one of my top 2 places. He said, well, you know, sleep on it for a night, and we'll wake up. You can make your decision. So a couple days later, maybe 3, 4 days later, whatever it was, I get a letter in the mail, a handwritten note from Dr. Blix explaining why that action that I had not even considered, that action showed him that, hey, this is the kind of person that we're looking for to come to Wabash, and you need to come here, and you got to be a part of what we're doing, and, you know, it's something special to call yourself a Wabash man. And because I got that note, and now that I'm part of the recruiting process, who knows, maybe Coach Carlson asked him to do that. But either way, that note is what put me over the edge. So I cannot thank Dr. Blix enough for that. If it wasn't for him, I would not have had the opportunity to come here and then therefore be standing here addressing you today. So, Wabash has given me a lot, taught me, like everyone else, for the most part, to think critically and solve problems. But the most important thing that Wabash has given me is you. All of you. 10 years later, lots of faces have changed. Some of them in the back are still the same. Lots of names have changed. Some of them in the back are still the same. The spirit of Wabash is exactly the same as the day that I left. And that is what my first chapel talk was about 10 years ago, about how we got to do everything we can to conserve this joint and make it be the same all the time and so on and so forth. Yeah, we got to learn and change and grow and everything else, but Wabash has got to remain Wabash. And I'm so happy to see 10 years later that it is, and that's a testament to you. That's who that goes to. So there are 3 things in the world that mean the most to me. I had a conversation with Grant Klembara during the season, you know, just about, he said, hey, I bet you're happy to be back at Wabash, and we're chit-chatting, and I said, yeah, man, I love this place. He said, how much do you love this place? Well, here's how much I love this place. There's 3 things in the world that mean the absolute most to me, and they're all number 1. This is no particular order. The first is my family, the second is my future wife, and the third thing is Wabash College. Okay, and here's an example why. So at the beginning of the football season this year, we had I personally, my family, we had an unfortunate event. We tragically lost my future father-in-law in an accident, and this campus came to our rescue. We were hurting pretty bad. There are too many people to thank individually, but you're all Wabash. So I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to say thank you for helping my family through that ordeal. You know, those of you who check your email know, especially they're on the track and field team, Coach Clyde Morgan is the king of quotes. I mean, he is the quote king. Every day we get quotes from him. The other day he sent out recently an email about responding when times are difficult. What I gathered from that email was not that you respond when times are difficult, but how you respond when times are tough. When times were tough for me, I turned to you, and I learned that you were there for me. So I appreciate that. Now I'll tell you one last story. This is a story about how Wabash helped somebody else in a difficult time. Some of you older Sigma Chi guys on campus, you know Diane Dagley. All right? Diane Dagley was our house mother at Sigma Chi for years and years and years. She has become family to me as well as many other Wabash men. When I first returned back to Wabash when I moved here, I called her. She's still living in the area. Great. Hey, let's go out to lunch. So we go out to lunch, and I expressed to her how much I was excited and how appreciative I was to be able to serve the college and the community that I'd loved so much while I was an undergraduate. So after all these years, she told me a story, and she shared something with me that I'd never heard. This story, this is Wabash from the Heart. For years prior to working at Wabash, Diane Dagley was a devoted Christian. Tragically, she lost her son. Very confused, she sought answers from the Bible. How, she asked, can he replace him? Took away my son. She came across a verse, and after her story, I did a little investigation. It's Mark 10:31. And so it is written that there is no one who has left house or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my sake and the gospel's, who shall not receive 100-fold now in this time. And he goes on. But think about that, 100-fold. She just lost her son. How are you going to replace 100 times? Yeah, right. So, just having lost her son, she slammed that Bible shut, she put it aside, and she said, well, I'd like to see that. And she didn't open the Bible for a long time. So then someone somehow convinced her down the road to take a job as the house mother at Sigma Chi. I use the term house mother because she was more than just a person that prepared our meals. Still to this day, she loves Wabash. She knew every guy that was in the house. Now, believe me this too, times have changed a lot. When I was a freshman, she saved our butts many a times. But we used to quiz her on years past. We'd cover up the composites, the names on the composites, so just the faces were shown. And we say, who's this guy? Bam, there's your answer. Oh yeah, who's that guy? Bam, right there. She knew every guy. Every one. Hell, sometimes we'd even give her a few beverages and then quiz her down. She's going to kill me for saying that. She did not miss one. She knew every one of them. Now, here we are 10 years, here I am 10 years later. There's plenty of guys before me. Call her on a regular basis. We visit her when we're passing through town. She attends our weddings. She asks about our families. She wants to meet our kids. Just the other day I was talking to her. I asked her permission to tell this story. And I had to leave her a voicemail. She called me back and she said, tell me you got little Olmys on the way. I was like, no, I'm not even close. I'm speaking at chapel. I want to tell you her story. So she's a part of our lives. One Mother's Day, the guys in the house gave her a card and flowers. It was at that time that she'd realized what happened. You are her 100-fold. We are her sons. I called her yesterday, like I told you, to ask her for her permission to tell this story, as it is a very personal deal. She said yes. I thank her for that. I also invited her to come today. So would you please join me in recognizing Diane Dagley? You can see how one member of this Wabash community can affect the lives of so many guys, and how so many of you can affect the lives of the members of this community. So Diane, thank you. Now I'll leave you with this. During the football season, prior to the first practice of the week, all right, we get out there and the guys are all jacked up about the game that we just won and so on and so forth, and we got to transition and change gears. Okay, we got to get them focused on next week. So every week what we do at the beginning is we watch a little fun movie clip for motivation. Coach Don Morrell is the guy that always has a good message to deliver to get the guys jacked up. So prior to the Monon Bell game, there need be no motivational clip. Our motivation lies solely in hearing that bell ring across our beautiful campus. So there wasn't a clip, but there were some words. And Coach Morrell's words to the team that Monday were such, and I quote, "Wabash is not just a college. Wabash is an idea. It's the idea of standing for something. It's being all male and doing what is right and being able to stand and fight," end quote. Now, Wabash community, if that doesn't get you juiced up, I don't know what does. I'm going to continue to stand and fight, and I know you will too, because Wabash always fights. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. All right, just a few announcements for this week. TGIF this week will be at Teak at 4:30, but right before, at 4 o'clock, the Sphinx Club is hosting a snowman building competition right across the street in the front yard of Phi Psi. Tonight, the wrestling team faces the College of Mount St. Joseph here at home at 7 p.m. This weekend, the track and field team will be away at the UND Open. Friday, the basketball team will be home versus Hiram at 7:30. During the halftime intermission, Teak is hosting a charity free throw competition between Dean of Students Mike Raiders, who's representing the Montgomery County Free Clinic, and chemistry professor Greg Dallinger, who's representing St. Jude's Hospital. Come out and see that. That should be a lot of fun. Saturday, tennis is at home versus Oberlin, and later that day versus Lake Forest. Saturday as well, basketball is home versus Allegheny, with the alumni basketball game being held prior to that game. Please rise and sing Old Wabash.
From the hills of the western plain.